Welcome to Roof It Up. This is a podcast about innovators, entrepreneurs, business leaders, and their stories about the course they took by Saenz Global.
All right, welcome to today's episode of Roof It Up. Super excited because we have an incredible guest on here. And not only is he amazing on social platforms, but he is actually an incredible human being. And I can 100% confidently say that because I know him myself, my team knows him, and he has been incredible in helping us learn and grow and so much. So super excited on today's podcast to have TJ with us, AKA also known as the world's greatest roofer. TJ, we're so happy to have you on here. TJ, if you could let everyone who's listening know a little bit about yourself, and then I'll come in with some questions. That'll be great.
Awesome. I'm TJ McCormack. I'm known across the world to my social followers as the world's greatest roofer. My job title is the community manager for Roofr Inc. I'm excited to talk about that here in just a few minutes.
I love it. And also, I wore, if you're watching this video, you'll see that I'm wearing a Roofr t-shirt as well. Definitely have to rep Roofr. They are an amazing business, which I'm so excited that we're going to dabble into a little bit of that. But not only that, they have an incredible culture as a company. That is like what our company at Saenz Global fell in love with the culture, with the team, with the leadership in that organization is incredible. They really care about their people. You can see because their people really care about their clients. So super excited to jump into that. So TJ, we are all about telling the story, like about how the journey of just being where you are today, right? So it started somewhere. Right. So if you could tell us a little bit about your story, like where did you start? Like were you always in the roofing industry, or what's a little bit about your story? We'd love to know.
Yeah, no. So I come from a very small town in Virginia. It's really rural. Like if you could think about farmland in Virginia, that's where I grew up on.
Wow.
I kind of resented my family quite a bit growing up in my teenage years because I lived in a big city as a younger child. And then when we were 11, we moved to the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
So I never wanted to live in the country. I wanted to live in the city. And so when I turned 18 and I graduated from high school, I went into the military in '96.
Wow.
And so I spent several years in the Navy as a torpedoman. And let me just tell you a sad story real quick. So I got out of the Navy and I didn't have any money. Just like most military people, when they get out, they probably spent it all or they didn't make enough to even live while they're in the military.
Wow.
And so around that time, I was working, doing like private security as well as working in federal institutions. And I was trying to become a police officer. And while I was trying to become a police officer, I had no money. I ran out of money. I'm living in the city of Norfolk, Virginia, and I had applied to be a Hampton City police officer in Hampton, Virginia. And in that week and a half, while I was waiting for them to tell me whether or not I was going to get a job, I had no more money. I had nowhere else to live. So I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, I need a job. And within 2 days, I was hired to be a police officer in the jurisdiction from where I was from, which was in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
But the sad part of that story is that I had promised myself I would never go back to the country again. And I ended up back in the country. Within 2 days after joining that police department, the Hampton City Police Department called me and said, "You're hired." And I had already moved, and I was already working for that small town. But I don't necessarily relate well with small town folks. So, but going through go fast forward 15 years, I had gotten out of being a police officer, and I was here. I am again. Didn't make a lot of money as a police officer, and I spent all of my retirement trying to get my life back together. And I answered a Craigslist ad, and the Craigslist ad was to come work for an insurance direct managed repair program that I'm sure you've heard of those types of programs now, especially all over Florida.
Yep.
I was part of the groundbreaking of that business, which has turned into what is known as Mad Sky today. Uh,
Wow.
and I worked with several very major people from the roofing industry that are still in the roofing space in lot larger roles, or maybe they're even owning their own companies now. But at certain points of that first year that we were operating Mad Sky, we had around 400 employees. So going from 0 employees to 400 employees in a year was kind of a big thing for us. But I went through that business. I was training 21, 22-year-old kids to make $1 million a year,
Wow.
um, doing roofing inspections as well as selling construction jobs. And I was making $15 an hour. So uh, I said, it's my turn to go make $1 million a year or sell $1 million a year and make six figures.
Right.
So I went out and started doing it on my own, working for some pretty big companies here in the country. And you know, I started doing social media, and here we are.
I
So
freaking love it. So
yeah,
if you obviously if you're listening to this as you're driving or whatever, if
yeah,
you're on the road, once you stop
yeah,
your car, like open up your social platforms and type in
yep.
world's greatest roofer and you will literally see that TJ has I believe like on TikTok alone, you have several like 100,000 plus followers. A lot.
Approaching 300,000. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's okay, cool. Like, and then Facebook, like you have people like he's had so many viral videos. I think I was watching like some facts. It's like 0.0001% that your video will ever go
Yeah,
viral, right? And it's like you've had more than
yeah.
one video go viral,
I've
right?
had
Like
I've had 26 videos go viral now. So
that's like
yeah,
insane with over 1 million views. Like that is not an
yeah,
easy thing to do. Okay, so you literally went from you were in the army, you became an officer,
yeah,
and then you
yeah,
pivoted over to like roofing slash all the things
yeah,
there. And then what made you just hit that social media button? Like, let me like what happened there?
yeah.
Like, how did that
Yeah,
start? What
in the very beginning when you were saying, the things that you've overcome and places that you've been,
Mhm.
roofing is hard.
Mhm.
I'm from Colorado, and if you know anything about Colorado, we were one of the most locked down states during COVID.
Yeah.
We're very. I'm not going to go into politics, but we lean a little left here in this state,
Yeah.
and but we shut down quite a bit during COVID, and they weren't allowing people to be out and about. So you know, I was okay there in the very beginning, but then we didn't have any hail in 2020. And we're in Denver. We're used to having quite a few hailstorms, and COVID really sucked for hail for us. And so we were struggling to find jobs easily during that time. So I was like, I'm sitting in my basement. I actually have COVID at the time that I'm in my basement, and I'm on my phone,
Uh-huh.
and TikTok had just become if you going back to politics, back in the beginning portions of 2020, Donald Trump was still a president,
Yep.
and TikTok was being pushed around as maybe not the app to be on, but Trump ended up making it possible for people to become paid for doing their content creation on TikTok.
Wow.
And I had already been like, wow, people are getting paid to produce content, and I realized one night when I was sitting there watching TikTok that there was not one person on TikTok at all that was using it for their business to grow their business, either whether it be sales, whether it be branding. There were a bunch of people that were doing crazy shit on TikTok. They were jumping around, dancing around on roofs, being very unprofessional, causing the scene that typically gets us the bad name that it does.
Mhm.
But there wasn't anybody doing anything positive. There wasn't anybody showing proper roof installations, proper roofing sales techniques, or just being good people.
Yeah.
And I saw an entryway, but the it was real hard to get started. I did everything that I could to fail, and then but I did also a lot of things to win.
Yeah,
So
you literally did a ton of things to win. Like a ton.
yeah,
I feel like the story about you is like your consistency, of
yeah,
like how you've been so consistent on the platform, you know,
yeah,
how you've been
yeah,
able to um I think, and that's what it's about, right? It's like people think I'm just gonna make one
yeah,
video and then it's gonna go viral. It's not. It's like the consistency of showing up. It's almost like a job in a
yeah.
way where you have to show up every day and be present. And I feel like you've like people love you on TikTok, also because you're so and because
Right.
I know you both in real life, and I also watch your videos, and you're like the same person.
Yeah.
You're like very authentic. And I feel like
Y-
that's
y-
what the people around the world, because you're not just having people from the US following you, you have people all over the world following you. And that's
right.
like, you make people feel good. But you actually do that in real life too, which is pretty awesome. You know, you're not
You
faking it.
know,
It's so cool.
I tried to I've tried to act on camera, right? And sometimes I can act being funny, and you've seen those
Yeah.
videos, I'm sure.
Yes.
But those videos, you can tell that I'm acting in those videos because every other video is usually just me being normal, TJ.
Yeah.
Recently I was at RoofCon with you,
Hmm.
and I was touched by something similar to what Patrick Carr said. When people saw me at the Roofr booth, they were they were buried in a line to just meet me, and I was very humbled by that because people just want to just talk to me, and that's what happened on TikTok. People found a way to connect with me and my story, and at the time when I was just becoming social media famous, I was going through a terrible child custody fight with my son, which I finally ended up getting full custody of him. And but in that time frame, I was still relating to hundreds of thousands of people around the United States and the world that were going through something similar in their life. And they just really people in that time just really needed a positive out, outlook on life because COVID had people so desperate to just interact with one another that be, TikTok became more and more relevant in the world because we wanted to interact with one another, but we were kept apart. And that's where I really I dove in or leaned in, if you will, and I
Hmm.
started doing 4 live broadcasts a day, and those were for people all over the world, and I would do them at specific times or strategic times, so that way I could talk to the people in the Philippines or New Zealand or Australia, or I could even talk to the people in China, South Africa, the people all over the world.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
love it because I you you literally have connections all over the world. Like I think you could
I
get on a
do.
flight right now and go to New Zealand, go to the
Yeah,
Philippines, wherever your followers are at, and I'm telling you, would
yeah.
still have a line of people wanting to meet you. And I think that's such a cool thing. But it's
It
just
is.
awesome because it's you, and I know you in real life, and you are like the real
Yeah.
deal, which is so cool.
Right.
Okay, so in this, so right now, I know you kind of have a roofer shirt on as well. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that. Like, what is this
Yeah.
new thing with Roofer?
Yeah, so as you know, Thais, I trained Saenz Global for how to do some social media stuff, and I've been traveling all over the country with Jen Silver this year, and I started going out on my own to teach roofing companies in the United States, and I was doing really well at it. And I was talking with Richard Nelson at Roofr. I've been talking to other bigger people in the industry as well about the possibility of doing content creation on a large scale for a major roofing organization.
Hmm.
And I was scared. I own my own business. World's Greatest Roofer is its own business.
Uh-huh.
And Karina and I had started that business because we were tired of paying somebody else to do what we do best, which is either put a roof on or sell social media, right?
Right.
But Richard Nelson, I call him Richie, a talking about culture, as a team, we call him Richie, but in public we refer to each other by our proper names.
Yeah.
But um, but uh, but Richard reached out to me and said, "Hey TJ, the Roofr brand loves you, and we see a great synergy of working together, and building a community across the world, of roofers that want to not only learn about roofer but just learn about roofing in general." And so he created this position for me in his organization. We're about 90 employees now. We're looking to be about 150 employees by next year.
Amazing.
But we didn't have a community manager, or somebody who actually is in front of roofers every day. And that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be out talking to roofers, teaching roofers, bringing people like you to do educational events someplace in the world, and creating a culture that shows our culture and our love for the roofing community, but also be respectful, responsible, to that community as well.
I
So,
freaking love it.
yeah,
I love because Richard, right? As you're calling Richard,
yeah,
but Richard, he I feel like, if I'm recalling the story, is like, hey, he's comes from a roofing background. It's like his family's a
yeah,
roofer, he's a roofer, and like
yeah,
they've built this incredible platform by roofers for
yeah,
roofers. But I also love that it's like this role that you have is to bring people value, right?
yep,
And obviously you're bringing value and connecting and all of these things, and like showing kindness and bringing knowledge and kind of really elevating the roofing industry to really,
sure,
I believe, the level that it's really meant to be at, right? So like
yep,
high caliber, really great professionals, like one another lifting each other up. And like I feel like that is like what you're doing. And then at the same time, and it's like a really cool way that Roofr is giving back and like receive. I don't know. It's just incredible. I just love it, because
yeah,
I just see like the bigger impact that it's having, right? And I think that's what it's about. It's about creating services like with our team, and platforms that
yeah,
are really able to impact in a really positive way the life of the roofers, contractors, and their
yeah,
teams, because then they can be more effective as parents, as business owners, as coaches, and that's what really, there's like a greater mission to it. So I really love it, and I know that there's not a better person that would take this role than you, and I'm super super stoked for you and Roofer together. It's incredible.
I,
We love
I appreciate that. And Roofer's culture, just in the first several weeks of me joining, it's a fully autonomous remote position. So everybody, well, there are some offices in the world, right? Like there's an office in Toronto, there's an office in Ontario, right?
Yeah,
And then we have one here in Seattle. But most of the time, all of us work from home, and
right.
we schedule our meetings with each other to make it feel like we're actually in an office building.
Yeah.
And but talking about the culture, we have a people team that work here that make sure that we're well taken care of, to make sure that we're continuously bringing positivity into the workplace, as well as making sure that you have everything that you could need or want. And uh, Roofer does things for its employees that not a lot of people do, like especially in the roofing space, or in other parts of corporate America, or business America.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never worked for a company that has a laundry day. Like once a month, you're supposed to take a Friday off to go do your laundry.
I
That you take screen breaks throughout your day to make sure that you're well rested, and that you want to go back to work. And
Yeah.
like just the love that Richard gives every single employee from the first day into their first several weeks has been amazing. But to go back to your point about the responsibility of where roofers are today, we a typical roofing company now lasts 2 seasons,
Wow.
and we have to stop burning all of the salespeople that we're going throughout the United States.
Yeah.
Now, a typical roofing company could probably hire 10 new salespeople a year. On some occasions, like it's in the hundreds, depending on how big the organization is. but they burn through salespeople so quickly because they're not training them properly, or they don't have a great culture, or they don't have systems and processes in place to help those salespeople to grow themselves personally. And a lot of times, I'm not saying this on a bad level. Roofers are money hungry, and they put their energy and their money into the wrong things. And we're still stuck 10 to 15 years behind in our industry because we never advanced the proper way. And here we are going. I'm going to go back and talk about salespeople. The average salesperson doesn't go fully into fruition into his best years into years 2 and 3. So if
Wow.
you're burning a salesperson in a year and a half is what typically a typical sales organization will burn a salesperson in a year and a half,
Hmm.
meaning they'll get rid of them, they'll fire them, the salesperson will run away to
Right.
another organization, and now they're all that training and all that stuff you just did for the first year and a half now goes to the new organization that they're actually excelling
Wow.
in, succeeding, excuse me, excelling, succeeding.
Oh, you're good. You got it there.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
one last question here. Like, what is something about your profession that you want to debunk?
Let's talk about social media real quick,
Love
because
it.
that's what I'm definitely well, I'm an expert in a lot of things, but social media being one. You don't get as big as I've gotten without putting in the work,
Mm.
and that goes for your roofing business as well. If you don't educate yourself, if you're not training yourself, if you're not going out there to do the activity, like I'm going to mention Ben Menchaca, right? When Ben Menchaca said, do the activity, it resonated with me because that means you just have to get up every morning. You have to do the things that are necessary in order to live a good life. And
Right.
if that means you have to work hard in order for something to accomplish something, then you should do it. My dad used to say, anything worth doing is worth doing well, and if it's not worth doing, don't do it at all. So with us now with the social media aspect, it sometimes was 17 to 20 hours a day in my life, where I was making content, I was doing live broadcasts, I was figuring out why other videos weren't performing like other videos were, and then just overall being a good person and not fake to the camera.
Okay, I love that. So it's like the
Yeah,
debunk and like the social media aspect is
yeah,
you did not get there, and people who are at your level, it's not
yeah.
something that happens simply by mistake, right? It's not, it's
No.
like it
Yeah.
happens intentionally, right? It's like you're putting in the hard work, you're showing up
Yeah.
every day. And so that's really good because a lot of people are like, oh, that's so easy, it's just they just show their face, and it's
Right.
like, no, there's actually a lot of thinking, processing, evaluating, looking at data, all that stuff to really gauge your audience and make sure that you're providing the content that they best enjoy. So no, that's really good. I love it. Okay, awesome. TJ, to
Yeah.
everyone listening, if they want to get a
Yeah.
hold of you for anything,
Sure. Yeah.
where could they reach you? So
Yeah.
share with everyone.
So TJ at roofr.com, ROOFR.com. Or you can just follow me on all social platforms, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And it's the only one that's different is Instagram. There's some guy that made an account years ago called World's Greatest Roofer, but he never did anything with it. It's still
Uh,
stuck in 2014. So, but the World's Greatest Roofer on Instagram, World's Greatest Roofer on everything else.
But TJ, we want to thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your
Thank
story.
you.
Thanks for just being
Yeah,
so real with us and just sharing the journey and super exciting things ahead. So we are so thankful for your time. Thanks so much for being on Roof It Up. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon, Thais.
All right, sounds great.